Welcome to the Devil in the Details podcast with your host, Will Nesbitt.
Hello, and welcome to a long overdue episode of the Devil in the Details podcast. I am your host, Will Nesbitt. Thank you for joining me today. Let's get into it. So it's been a few months since my last episode. Trying to churn these out more regularly. Hopefully I can make that happen. But anyway, I appreciate you being here and joining me again. So today I want to talk about fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown. There are a couple of quotes that come to mind. One of those is by Shakespeare, where he says, "There is nothing neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so." The other one is by FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, where he says, "There is nothing to fear but fear itself." And we'll tie in how those two quotes work together. Fear is a natural response, right? Fear is a natural response. And it can be life-saving because it could be your instinct or intuition warning you of the danger of something, of either doing something or not doing something. But it can also be limiting and it can hold you back. Which is why when you face a fear or when you have a fear, you have to weigh the worth of the goal against the perceived danger, right? The perceived danger, which means the danger that we think is there. Because sometimes we can see danger where there really is no danger. And that's where the quote from Shakespeare comes in. "There is nothing neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so." You know, the situation can be simply what it is. But because of your thinking, you can sometimes make things worse. Because you have this fear of the unknown. And the crazy part about it is if it's unknown, if you don't know, why are you afraid? What are you fearing? There is nothing to fear but fear itself. So when you look at a thing and say, "Well, man, I don't want to do that. I'm scared. I'm worried about what will happen." You know, you're afraid of being embarrassed, afraid of getting your feelings hurt, afraid of being physically hurt. You know, but you can never really see what's on the other side of the choice that you make. We don't always know what will come of what we do or do not do. You know, and either way, a choice has to be made, right? Because even if you decide not to do, right, doing nothing is still doing something. It's still doing something, and it still works toward the circumstance. So this is This is where courage comes in. Courage is the willingness to do even when you're afraid. The willingness to say, you know what? I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go anyway. So I relate this to when we are fighting injustices, when we look at fighting against systems and principles of injustice, we have to be courageous. We have to look and say, you know what? I know there may be retaliation. I know people are going to look at me crazy, but justice must be served. What must be done must be done. Because there will always be resistance to justice, right? Just like we have resistance to injustices, there will also be resistance to justice. There's always going to be someone or something to oppose you. Because unfortunately, ironically, the same systems and people elected and appointed to our legal systems and government institutions, some of those same people are there for the sole purpose of maintaining unjust systems or unjust practices. Not everyone that is in government or in law is there for the good of the people. Some are there for the good of themselves or for the good of the people who pay them, who fund them. Big business or whoever. And oftentimes we can be afraid of taking on these systems because they seem too big. They seem too powerful. And we've seen examples of people who've tried and failed. But we've also seen examples of people who've tried and succeeded. So it's a matter of you saying, is the goal worth the sacrifice? Yes. Yes, it is. Justice is always worth the sacrifice. And you never know what's going to happen. You just have to step out and do it. Most people say you step out on faith. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said faith is taking the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase. You take those steps and you figure it out as you go. And most times you won't know when you start out. And that's the other part of fear, because sometimes you just don't know what to do. It's not necessarily the goal itself seeming to be, may not be the goal itself that seems to be so big and, insurmountable, but oftentimes it could just simply be, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what steps to take. And you may think you may have to have this grand, these grand things and these grand tools and grand systems in place. Well, a lot of times it could just be something so simple. It could be something so simple. But even that is a step in the right direction, or is a step from the place where you were. So again, is the goal worth the sacrifice? When it comes to justice, yes. A lot of times the answers will come as you're on the path. It will come to you along the way. You don't have to have it all figured out at the beginning. Know the goal, know where you want to go. And then make the move. And then figure it out as you go along. You may fail. You may fail many times, but you keep going. You keep going. And along the way, you look for those things that can help you, that can push you along further. You gather the information, you gather the knowledge, you continue to learn. And if you find people along the way that can help you, that's all the better. Because that's another source of fear. Doing it alone. You may have to. You may have to, because not everyone has the courage to go with you. They may want justice. They may want certain things to change, but they may not have the courage to do. And most people don't. There will always be a few that will be willing to get stuff started. And sometimes people will come once they see you standing up. You may give someone the inspiration to do what needs to be done, and then they'll join you. You know, you could be that thing that they find in their path to help them move further towards achieving their goal, and vice versa. So you never know. So, in conclusion, I just want to encourage you that, you know, if you have a goal, or if there's some injustice that you're fighting or need to fight, you know, do it. Take whatever steps you have to take, whether they be big or small. Even the smallest step is better than doing nothing. And that small step can give you the confidence you need to make another small step and another small step until that snowballs into something larger. And then you turn around and look, you say, man, I'm so much further along than I was before. But we can't sit on the sidelines and bury our head in the sand, because that can often make things worse. Doing nothing can make a situation much worse. You know? And again, that's a natural response, but it's not always the best response. Sometimes doing nothing is what's best, right? Sometimes it is. You have to figure it out for yourself. Sometimes it's best to lay low and then, you know, wait for a particular opportunity. But you also have to think, what if that opportunity never comes? What if it never happens? No one's going to come and save you. At least not always. Sometimes there are people who come along, and do help us, do save the day. But for the most part, sometimes that's just not the case. So then what are you going to do? And when you see someone else that needs your help and they're fighting a battle, don't be afraid to join in. You know, give of your time to help someone else. Give your energy to help someone else. Because you never know when something could affect you. A lot of times we don't think about certain things and we don't really pay attention to it, or we don't want to get involved until it affects us. And the truth is that there are a lot of things that do affect us, maybe not directly, but indirectly in some way or another. It may not affect you now, but it may reach you at a later time, which is why it's important, because when you have these people who commit these injustices, and if they're allowed to have their way and get away with it, they're just going to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going until it reaches you or someone you know or someone you love. So while you think it may not affect you now, it could very well affect you in the future or someone you know. And even if it doesn't, it's always good to look out for and help your fellow man. Even if the chances of something affecting you are just remote. So when it comes to fear, always think and ask yourself, what exactly am I fearing? What am I afraid of? Is the goal worth the sacrifice? Is the goal worth the sacrifice? Am I willing to suffer to achieve this? Those are questions you have to ask yourself and answer for yourself and make that determination. But it's always best to be on the right side of justice. That's all for today's episode. I appreciate you joining me again and sticking with the podcast. Please be sure to share this episode and the entire podcast with your family and friends. As you know, the podcast is available on Spotify as well as YouTube. You can find all of my links to this and other episodes on my Linktree, which is at linktr.ee/will to live US. And I'll include a link in the description. So please send that link out to your family and friends. Be sure to go back and check out other episodes you may have missed, particularly the interviews that I've completed with Dr. Wilbert Smith and Elmarine Allen and Eileen Walsum. Very good interviews, very good episodes, if I do say so myself. And that is all for today. Thanks again, y'all. Take care. Peace.